Welcome back to the Jordan Syatt podcast. Before we get into today's exciting episode, which is incredible, you should listen the whole way through. I have a quick announcement. If you're watching the video, you can see I'm sitting here with my buddy, Mike Vacanti. Mike, you want to say hi?
Hey, y'all. Happy to be here.
Mike and I are the hosts of the How to Become a Personal Trainer podcast. It is a free podcast, obviously meant for personal trainers to help you become a great coach, learn coaching psychology, nutrition strategies, coaching strategies. We want to help you become a great coach so your clients can get better, more sustainable results, and also to teach you how to build a successful online coaching business. If you want to listen, we upload every Tuesday to the How to Become a Personal Trainer podcast. The link is in the show notes if you want to go check that out. And that's it. We'd love to see you there.
Love to see you there. Enjoy the episode.
Today, I'm honored to introduce you to Travis Hawley. Travis is a former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer, intelligence analyst at the National Security Agency, Hebrew translator, and regional media analyst at U.S. Central Command, and contract open source intelligence instructor for the Department of Homeland Security. His career sits at the intersection of intelligence, media analysis, cyber research, and investigative journalism. He has led media and social media analysis in both government and private sector roles, including serving as director of media at 2 cybersecurity companies. He is the founder of Shadowgraph Intelligence, where he investigates extremism, foreign influence operations, coordinated inauthentic behavior, anonymous online actors, and complex digital networks. Hawley uses open source intelligence and narrative intelligence methods to identify hidden actors, map influence ecosystems, and turn complex digital evidence into clear public-facing analysis for media, legal, policy, and private sector audiences. Travis, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, man.
Man, I'm going to be honest. There are so many words in there that I don't understand. So
There's a lot of lingo and buzzwords and all that type of stuff. Yeah.
I've followed you for a while. I really enjoy your work. And even just in the 20 minutes we were talking before this, I'm very excited to speak with you, get to know you better, and to learn more about what you do. I feel like the online world, we often talk about how bad it is and how crazy it is, but you're in a very unique position in that you understand it far better than I do, far better than the average person. And I'm excited to get your input into what's actually happening in the online space, the cybersecurity space, the intelligence world that you can translate to the average everyday person.
Yeah.
So before we even get into you or any of that, can you explain why the average person should care about what you and I are going to discuss today? Like, how does any of this impact someone who isn't in military, who isn't in law enforcement, who isn't in the intelligence world? How does this impact the everyday person?
Yeah, that's a great question. So thanks again for having me. I think this is, in my opinion, what is happening online and on social media is existential. And I don't use that word hyperbolically. We're consuming content through our phones primarily, 6 to 12 hours a day, depending on who you are and your age and demographic. And the terminology I think that is most important to set the stage for this conversation is cognitive warfare. So under cognitive warfare, there's all these other definitions and operations we can get into later. But I want people to understand cognitive warfare is shaping one's perceptions, beliefs, emotions, understandings. And that is ultimately what is happening through media. Primarily, it was done through radio and television, but since the mid-2000s, and especially since the mid-2010s, social media has become instrumental in shaping our worldviews, shaping how we see ourselves, how we see other communities. And for that reason, this is why I believe what we are experiencing online on a day-to-day basis is nudging us in very extreme directions, politically, religiously, all sorts of dynamics at work here. So cognitive warfare is actually just what's happening in our hand every day with these phones. And that's kind of the scary reality we're living in, is we don't really understand that's what's happening. Some people do, and some people believe it is, but they don't understand the actual mechanisms behind it, the actors behind it, the technology behind it, the psychology behind it. So hopefully we can get into why that's happening and how that's happening, because at the end of the day, I think what's important is we try to give ourselves back agency. And you can only give yourself agency if you really understand what's happening. And that can lead to the ability to be more intentional with the way we use technology, intentional and conscious in the way we consume content as well. And at the end of the day, having more control over how your worldview is shaped, I think is maybe even a human right.
I think many people, and when I say many people, also myself included, we often look at or hear the words, whether it's propaganda or how people are being influenced on social media, and we always just relate it to other people. We don't really think of ourselves as being the one that's being influenced, and we're all in our own echo chambers, silos on social media. So I'm excited selfishly for this because I'm not an expert in it whatsoever. I'm going to be learning a lot from you. And for me to be acutely aware of how I'm being influenced by what's being put on my social media screen, what's being put in front of me, as you're saying, is essential so that we can better understand how we're being influenced in our thoughts and our actions, and maybe even potentially being radicalized without realizing it.
Right.
So before we get into all the terminology, the lingo, all of that, I just want to know a little bit more about you. How did you get into cybersecurity and intelligence? What's your background? What's your story?
So my career began in 2007. I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force, and here in Texas, I went to San Antonio to boot camp, and I was accepted into a intelligence program and a language program. I was accepted into a program actually to learn Hebrew. So many people don't know this. Most people would never know this, that the military teaches languages, all the languages basically, from adversaries to allies. And I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force and became an intelligence analyst.
Is that what you wanted to do? Like you said, hey, this is what I want to do. You didn't want to go in a different area.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be an intelligence analyst.
So actually, let's take a step back. I only wanted to be a translator. So I grew up in San Jose, California. I'm from the Bay Area. I grew up mostly around Iranians and Assyrians, people from Iran, whether they're Iranian or Assyrian, from Iraq as well. I grew up just around Middle Eastern cultures, mostly Christians. And, I've always had a knack for learning languages. Like, I've always been obsessed with languages. Since I was a kid, I lived in the Sacramento area and was around, Hispanic and, Spanish-speaking audience as well. I started learning Spanish. And I was 12 years old, I think, when I moved to San Jose. And I just found myself with a lot of Iranian friends. In my apartment complex, there was a lot of people from Iran, who had left after the revolution. Their parents had left after the revolution. So I just started learning Farsi and Assyrian just for fun. And I was already mostly fluent in Spanish at the time as well. And I just love learning languages. I would create I'm such a nerd. I would create fake languages. I'm not kidding you. I'd make fake languages, like fake alphabets and all sorts of stuff. And I just was obsessed with languages, and I was pretty good at it. I wouldn't call myself a polyglot or anything, someone who speaks multiple languages, because I wasn't fluent in all of them, but caught people's attention. And, a lot of my friends, my Persian friends and my Assyrian friends, in Assyrian, it's a khwara. Khwara means white boy. It means white, but white boy. People would call me the white boy who speaks X language and stuff like that. So I was a teenager at the time, and I was one day I'm going to be a translator for the UN or something. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what the UN is. Let's keep it real, And this is, right after 9/11 as well. So, long story short with that, at some point I was maybe 19 or something, and I had learned that you could join the military to learn a language and do jobs that revolve around languages. And I was that's the most amazing thing I ever heard of in my life, because I've always wanted to be a police officer. I've always just been a person sort of service. And I was military and a language? I was that's the most perfect mix ever. That's crazy. So I went to the recruiter, And I was like, hey, I want to be a linguist. That's the title of the job, was linguist. And then she kind of laughed at me, and she was like, yeah, okay, we'll see about that. Because you have to pass all these like IQ tests. So first you have to pass the ASVAB. It's a test just to kind of test your basic IQ. And of course I passed that. And then you have to take a test called the DLAB, the Defense Language Aptitude Battery. And what that is a fake language that the government has created, a fake language.
No
and you have to
way.
decipher it. Like
Without any knowledge of it, you have to try and
zero knowledge. Yeah. You just go in a room on a computer, and they give you headphones and a piece of paper, and they're basically just like, decipher it.
No way.
I don't remember how much time you get. You might get like 2 hours or something. I don't know. Now, you don't have to like decipher it perfectly, but what it does is it walks you through, it teaches you, or it gives you hints at like grammar and like syntax, prefixes, suffixes, and stuff like that. And you have to like start to identify it over time. Basically, that's the premise of the test. And the reason why my recruiter at the time kind of laughed at me was because like she was like, yeah, okay, sure. Because I guess most people don't pass it. You know, it's a very difficult test to pass. And I was like, I'm going to pass it. She's like, okay, sure. Yeah, we'll see, you know. She wasn't rude about it. She was being somewhat playful, but I was like, no, I'm going to pass it. Like, you don't know me. Like, I love languages, you know, like, and she's like, okay, cool. You love languages. It doesn't mean anything. Cool. Anyways, I passed it. Okay. Obviously I passed it, and I didn't pass it with like spectacular score. I did pretty good, but I could have done better. I'll be honest with you, but it's not like I studied for it, and it's not like you could study for it. So basically what happens is the score you get on the DLAB determines what language categories you qualify for. There's like Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4, Cat 5, I think, something like that. I forget now. It's been a while. And I qualified for the second highest category, which you can get Russian, Persian, Hebrew, and like Tagalog or something like that.
So is the category based on the difficulty of the language?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's Cat 5, maybe it's Cat 4, I forget the levels now, is Chinese or Mandarin, Arabic, and Korean.
Those are the hardest.
Those are the hardest, yeah, like without a doubt. And technically English is the hardest, but we're already English speakers, so you don't count that one. So I qualified. And once you pass the DLAB, they're like, okay, that's the only job you're going to do in the military. They're not going to let you do anything else because it's so hard to find someone who could pass that. Well, I'm sure there's other jobs that are the same. If you pass whatever the qualification thing is, like, okay, we need you to do that because it's hard to find people. So I was like, cool, perfect. All right, so this is a kind of a detour here, but so you go to. Let's talk about why I got Hebrew, though. Okay, it's a very serendipitous, interesting story. So, I didn't grow up Jewish. My mom's Jewish. My father's not Jewish. My mom was adopted by Catholics. Her Jewish family, her Jewish mother had issues, and so my mom grew up with a Catholic family. And my mom didn't even realize she was Jewish until I don't know. She was 20 or 30 or something. I don't know. She didn't even know. She met her biological mother when she was 18, and then didn't really talk for a while years again. And then at some point, I think my mom told me maybe around 97, 98, 99, I don't know, something like this. She actually had a little bit closer relationship with her biological mother and realized, oh, we're Jewish. So long story short there, I didn't grow up Jewish because my mom didn't grow up Jewish. She didn't raise us Jewish naturally. Either way, I was working at Red Lobster. Nice segue, right? I was working at Red Lobster. And
I didn't grow up Jewish. I was working at Red Lobster.
It's all connected. It's all connected. And I was working at in San Jose at the Red Lobster, and it was 2006 and 7. And there was a waiter named Andrew Schwartz. Shout out Andrew Schwartz. And I told him the same story, and he was like, "Oh, you're Jewish." And I was like, "Yeah, but I didn't grow up that way. I didn't have this foundation or anything like that, And he was like, "You should do Birthright." And I said, "What's that?" I don't know. I don't know anything. I literally know nothing. And he's like, "Oh, it's a trip to Israel and for Jewish people to like connect or whatever." So I did Birthright in July 2007. And that was the first Jewish thing I ever did in my entire life. Literally.
That's quite the introduction.
Literally. And, for Shabbat and all the things. Yeah, exactly. Just 0 to 100. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know much about Judaism. I don't know anything about Israel. So it was like crazy, but also kind of cool in a sense that I have no preconceived notions,
Right.
no bias, no nothing. I just go there as a blank slate. And if anything, I grew up around more Christian people. So that was an interesting trip. And one of the trips, or one of the, believe it or not, all this is connected. One of the things we did is we went to Har Herzl in Jerusalem, cemetery, and one of the, the guides there or whatever, he was talking to us, and he's like, "You guys should learn Hebrew if you're Jewish." He said it in a particular way that stuck with me, and I think at the time I didn't think this way, but I thought maybe that's like the shortest route to connecting to my roots is language, because I don't know have any other basis. So I went back to the US, of course, and I was already waiting to go to boot camp. And I was already selected to be a translator. But here's the catch. You don't choose your language. The military assigns you a language.
Really? So you didn't choose Hebrew?
You don't get to choose. And so you're playing with fate a little bit there. So you have to just be open, whatever, because they call it the needs of the Air Force or the needs of the military, whatever's going on in the world. So what happens is you go to boot camp, and I went to boot camp December 2007, and a couple weeks in, they bring all the nerds into a room, and they say, make a wish list. What languages do you want to learn? Just write them down. Okay. So number 1, I put Hebrew. I wouldn't have done that had I not probably, I can't say that for sure, but I may not have done that. But also the interesting thing is Hebrew is very related to Assyrian. It's a Semitic language, same family, same as Arabic. So a lot of Hebrew and Assyrian is the same or very close, especially like with the roots and stuff like that. So I put Hebrew as number 1. Number 2, I put Persian Farsi because I could read and write it already. I still can to this day. And number 3, I put Serbo-Croatian, just because I was learning to read Cyrillic alphabet and stuff like that. So then a couple weeks later, towards the end of boot camp, they bring you back into the room and they just tell people, like, this is what you're getting, like it or not. And they do this with pilots, by the way, too. Like you get to what platform, what aircraft you want to fly. And then they do a ceremony where everyone celebrates what platform they get assigned. So we do it in a much less, cool way for the languages. And they gave me Hebrew. So I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like I went from like such a blank slate Jew to like Israel to being assigned Hebrew in the US military in 6 months span.
That's
July
crazy.
to December. I was like, wow. So now my world went from growing up with Middle Eastern friends to now like this is my life. And why that matters is linguists are in the intelligence component and the media component, or what we say public affairs. So working with the country of origin when it's an ally, you're using a language primarily for coordination, intelligence sharing, operations, training, all this kind of stuff. And if you get something like Arabic at the time, or Pashto, Dari, Farsi, it's intelligence purposes. So I didn't choose intelligence necessarily. Like that wasn't my primary goal. My primary goal was the language. That's really all I cared about. But I happened to be at the nexus of intelligence. And to zoom out of why that was important, again, I didn't even think about this at the time, was in the 2000s, what do we have happen? 9/11, we had the Iraq War, Afghanistan War, and as it pertains to Israel, we had the Second Intifada from 2000 onward, Second Lebanon War, the pullout of Gaza in 2005. Like there's just one thing after the other happening. So the importance of working with Israel actually significantly grew. People don't understand like the relationship between Israel and the U.S. is like evolved. Like we used to be frenemies, like truly in the 60s and 70s. Like it wasn't like it is now. It's been a slow, gradual relationship building based on American interests. How important the region became to the United States increased the value of a relationship with Israel, to be honest with you. So the first year in the Air Force, I went to a military institute called the Defense Language Institute. It's in Monterey, California. And for a year, all day, every day, you learn your language. It is immersion. So instead of sending you to the country of origin, they bring the country of origin to you. So everything's taught by native speakers. So whether you're in Arabic or Russian or whatever language you're in, you're learning from native speakers, or there could be some non-native speakers who are just amazing at the language. And you learn all day, every day for a year, and you have to be fluent. You have to become fluent.
Is it in like a classroom setting? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a classroom. So interestingly enough, I feel so blessed to have ever been part of this program. It changed my life forever, of course. So it's 6 students and 2 teachers. This is the ratio, which is amazing. Of course incredible.
Yeah, it's insane.
The attention you get is like, doesn't even make sense. 6 students, 2 instructors. And again, because it's the military, this isn't for anyone who understands the terminology ulpan in Israel. This isn't like something you go and drop in casually, you learn the language. Like it's militant. I'm in uniform. I'm on a military base all day, every day. And if you mess around, if you fail tests, they'll kick you out. Like it's not a university or not. It's not chill. It's not fun. No, you're not having fun. Like we try to have fun because we're humans there, but like it's not fun. It's like
this is your job.
It's your job, and it's very serious. The amount of money they're investing in your education and the value you're going to bring to the military is extremely high. So for that reason, if you're immature, if you are not performing, they just kick you out. And that's what happened in my class. 2 people, 2 students, they failed out in like a couple months.
Really? They just weren't keeping up. Yeah,
they were. It's not that they weren't smart. Anyone at this institute is highly intelligent, but most people there are 18 to 23. So immature, very immature. And I'm certain I was immature at the time as well, but I love languages, so I could lock in on that. And these 2 students didn't, so they failed out. The reason why that's important is now we went from 6 to 2 to 4 to 2. Just 4 of us and 2 instructors for a year, all day, every day in a classroom. So the ability to learn a language very quickly is, it's a little bit easier when you have that because it's immersion. Like after class, like, get out at 3:00 or something, and then you go do military stuff. There's homework every night. So when you're not in the class, you're just doing homework. Like your entire life revolves around the language. So that's how I learned Hebrew. And I passed, of course. There's a test at the end of the year you have to pass. It's called the DLPT, Defense Language Proficiency Test. And I got a perfect score on that. And then you go do your job. And I worked in intelligence. I was assigned to the National Security Agency, which is signals intelligence, and cyber intelligence is also involved there, open source intelligence, lots of different disciplines are mixed in there, but the National Security Agency focuses on foreign intelligence as opposed to the FBI, which is domestic intelligence. CIA is also foreign intelligence. And obviously I can't really talk about much, but ultimately it's counterterrorism type of work in the Middle East, North Africa, MENA as my focus. I went to Afghanistan as well and did intelligence there. So obviously I'm not using Hebrew with that stuff. So primarily my job is, counterterrorism intelligence in the Middle East. And, that was a volatile time as well, including with Israel. Lots of stuff happening then. Flotillas coming in from Europe trying to break the blockade in Gaza and stuff like that. So that's how I got my start in intelligence. Believe it or not, was actually through language, and I worked at the National Security Agency, and I got really, really lucky. Because I think I got really, really lucky because anyone who works in intelligence in the military or the Air Force, I'll just focus on the Air Force, is there's like two paths. One is you can go do Air Force intelligence. And what that is you might be briefing pilots before they go on missions. Hey, this is what the adversary has. This is where they're at. This is their capabilities and stuff like that. You're doing an Air Force intelligence mission. Or you can get assigned to an intelligence agency that doesn't just focus necessarily on Air Force or something. And that's where I got put, was in the NSA, which I think was way better, to be honest with you. I'm very happy I did that. It's a different experience, right? Because then I wasn't on an Air Force base. So I didn't have a traditional Air Force career or experience. I was on an Army base doing intelligence, foreign intelligence. It's a very different experience. So that's the basis of how I got into this world. And again, didn't grow up Jewish. I wasn't like focused on the Middle East geopolitically. I didn't have those interests. I was just a language guy. And then next thing I know, literally my life changes overnight, really, when I joined the military. And now my whole life is the geopolitical analysis of the Middle East and terrorism. And of course, with a focal point on Israel and stuff like that. And so now, almost 20 years later, it seems more important than ever. The type of stuff I was doing then seems more applicable now, I'll be honest, than it was then.
Obviously, there's a lot you can't say about what you did. Is there anything that you can say in regard to what your role was? Like, was it mostly working with Israel or Israelis, or like what? Is there anything you can say? And if not, that's fine. Like about what your role was working in intelligence.
Yeah, I think the focus is generally on understanding the intentions of an adversary. So there's many different terrorist groups in the region, and one terminology we use a lot in signals intelligence is indications and warnings. And that's to understand, are they about to do an attack? Are they about to like a terrorist attack? Are they planning something? You could even say like what Israel could have done better before October 7th is the same thing. They'd be monitoring Hamas and looking for indications and warnings, right? So it's the same thing. Intelligence is looking for indications and warnings primarily. Like, again, I could just speak broadly, not necessarily about what I was doing, but, is the any country there? Is there air forces prepping for something? Mm-hmm. Are there ground troops moving? Is there terrorists talking on I'll talk about like out in Afghanistan. I can be more explicit about that as well, is like, we're intercepting the communications of terrorists, just to be honest with you. That's what we're doing. It's called signals intelligence. You intercept those communications, and it could be radio, it could be text message, SMS, it could be sat phone, any type of signal, including certain countries. It could be radars, by the way. Those give off signals as well. All sorts of military technology gives off signals. And with those intercepted communications or signals, you understand their intent, hopefully. And hopefully we can be prepared for anything that might happen. And depending on what level you're doing it, in Afghanistan, I primarily did it, what we'd say tactically, at the tactical level, which is, they're planting roadside bombs. And they're communicating to each other saying, hey, I'm about to go, obviously in other languages, I am about to go plant this bomb on this road or this bridge because there's a U.S. convoy or NATO convoy coming, and we're going to blow it up. And they did that all the time. It killed tons of U.S. and NATO troops that way. So that's like a tactical level, like on the ground war fighting form of using intelligence to understand what they're planning and doing. And then there's a strategic side as well, I would say, which is more sensitive, and that might be, higher level type of intelligence that could help our, Congress or military leadership set policies, and understanding like for example, if you're doing that with Russia, which I wasn't, so I freely speak about that. If you intercept communications between like senior generals who are talking to their political apparatus, they're not necessarily talking about tactical level things at that level of like generals and stuff like that. But you might see like their plans, like, hey, a couple of years before talking about stuff about Ukraine. Oh, interesting. And that type of intercepted communications could understand like, oh, they might be prepping for something like a war, invasion, who knows? And that could help set our policy or set our priorities in the region at either our political echelon or a military. So these are the kind of different ways intelligence can be used, from tactical all the way to strategic levels.
And what are you doing now?
Now I run my own private intelligence business, primarily working with, what I would say is macro to micro intelligence on the private sector. And on the macro level intelligence, narrative intelligence, that is understanding how narratives spread on the internet through media, through social media, through apps, communication apps, bot networks, understanding bot networks, foreign influence, how they're leveraging social media as a tool to spread narratives, foreign malign influence, how countries, nation states, and other contracted entities outside of the U.S. are exploiting our information environment. So that's more the macro level intelligence I'm doing, mostly for like think tanks and nonprofits and things of that nature, all the way down to what I might call micro intelligence, which is like a person of interest intelligence, like detailing their digital footprint, understanding where they are communicating and operating on the internet, which apps, which programs, which forums, which social media channels, understanding what their usernames are, their IP addresses, anything sensitive that is what you could say open source. Open source, again, has some layers to it as well. Publicly available information, things that can be accessed through Google and publicly available social media channels, and commercially available information that can be accessed through databases, through paywalls, where it's behind something, but legally. Everything I do is legally attainable. I'm not hacking. I'm not a hacker, for instance. I don't do any hacking. People sometimes think when they see the type of work I do that I'm a hacker. I'm not a hacker. Hacking's primarily illegal unless you're an ethical hacker. So, and with those cases, it could be for law enforcement, identifying someone who's committed a crime or planning to commit a crime, understanding like their whereabouts, understanding their intentions, trying to understand where they are communicating and operating online. So sometimes that stuff can be subpoenaed so they can get even better information that I don't have access to. Or law firms also, people are in litigation, whether it's commercial, civil, criminal, and it's helping to get them information that is actionable to solve the case or prosecute. So yeah, this whole spectrum of intelligence I'm doing, again, understanding networks and narratives down to the person, understanding the actual individual level as well. So that's what I'm doing now. And yes, I do teach open source intelligence part-time with DHS as well.
So one thing you brought up is bot networks, and I want to talk about bot networks and sock puppets. Briefly, I remember one of my first exposures to your content was a video of this building of phones covering every square inch of this entire building. I've never seen anything like it. And it was just, it looked like a handful of people in there who were somehow controlling all of these phones. And it looked like every single phone, thousands of them, thousands and thousands of phones were interacting with posts on social media, whether they were posting something, posting comments, posting its own content, whatever, just almost automatically, like a legitimate robot doing it. And I saw that, and in your video, you explained that this is called a bot farm. And that was something that just, it never would have occurred to me was a real thing. Nowadays I feel like people will use like bot almost as like an insult, like you're a bot, whatever.
Right.
I don't think I fully understand it. I don't think the vast majority of people fully understand what bots are and how they're used. So can you explain what bot networks are, what sock puppets are, and how they impact social media?
Absolutely. This is very important topic that is under the umbrella of coordinated inauthentic behavior, CIB. That's just the academic term we would use for this.
There's like this is a real thing.
Oh,
yeah.
It is a very widespread influence operation is really what coordinated inauthentic behavior is designed to do, is to, again, influence people on the internet. So let's talk about what those entities are. So there's a spectrum here as well. There is bots, there are cyborgs, and then there are sock puppets. So this is a spectrum, and what makes them distinct. So on one end of the spectrum, there are bots. And what a bot is automated activity. It doesn't have to be a social media account. It can be, there's other types of automated activity online as well. But from a social media perspective, it is an account that is behaving based on pre-programmed directions, a script that it is to go do certain actions for a certain purpose. There's not a human behind the keyboard doing anything, leaving those comments or whatever. And primarily what a bot is doing is engagement or viewing. So there's an economic reason bots exist. So on like the marketing end, someone might be trying to fluff their engagement metrics or their views to look more popular than something really is. So they might employ a bot network to inflate the perception of their engagement. That's more of an economic motivation. But I think when most people are talking about bots, they're talking more about the geopolitical implications here. And that is to amplify a narrative, a piece of content, whatever that's about. We can get into many different examples, and that's to fuel the algorithm, right? Social media is based on these algorithms, and especially in the first initial minutes to an hour, the more engagement there is or more time spent on that piece of content, if it's video, is feedback to the algorithm that this is something people enjoy, or I'm not sure if the word enjoy is right, but they're engaged in. And for that reason, then they will serve the content to more people. It will broaden its distribution. So to exploit that system, you just need to give the feedback to the algorithm. Give it likes, comments, shares, clicks, views, whatever word you want to use, all these different types of engagement. So that bots are doing that in an automated fashion. In the middle, or actually let's go to the other end of the spectrum. We have sock puppets. Sock puppets are also coordinated inauthentic behavior, but they are not automated. It's a person behind the keyboard.
Oh, it's a real person.
It is a real person. And they are acting under an alias, a pseudonym, or, they're obfuscating their identity. It's some other Mike Jones username, or, Rhinoceros 36295, whatever. But there is a real person behind it. And there are advantages to each of these types of accounts, right? One is automated, one is not automated. So you can kind of guess where the advantage is here. Automation, you can scale that. You can do that. You can get a bot to do things a human can never do, like 1,000 posts in a minute. A human literally can't do that. A computer can easily do that. So you can use a bot more for scale and targeting type of motivations, and then use a human for a more sophisticated thing, right? You're building a persona that doesn't always have to be, but may look legitimate. It could look like a real person, and it's more sophisticated in general with what it's trying to do. It might go into the comment sections and of course appear more real. So their comments and their activity doesn't get flagged by bot detection systems. And also the reception of what they're doing online to people like us will be less suspicious because it's not some automated thing. Because like a bot might go into a comment section and leave something that's like irrelevant because it didn't understand the context, whereas a human would basically almost never do that. So that's why there's advantages and disadvantages. I would say nation states employ the sock puppets a lot, and that's for many reasons. It tends to be done by military or military adjacent organizations. So for example, including the US, like all countries, all developed countries have some form of what we call information warfare. Information warfare is also another bucket, but having rooms full of people who are influencing online. Oh yeah, definitely. Like every country has those.
Countries have part of their military, part of their organizations, rooms full of people spending their days on social media.
Yeah.
This is real. Because if I trust you, so I believe you. But if someone who wasn't involved in this world said that to me, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. They're not wasting their time and resources on doing that.
Yeah, with 100% certainty, this is happening, and I think there are reasons to do that. I would say there are also different motivations here. So on the military side, information warfare, people can look this up too. It's out there. On the military side, I'll give you an example. If we're doing information warfare against targets in Afghanistan, we may want a local audience there to receive American troops better. So we want to educate them. Look, there could be some virtuous reasons to do it. Hey, we want them to understand we're not here to harm you. We're here to take out the Taliban. We're trying to educate them. And you need to go into their information environment to do that. They may not be on Facebook reading English. So you need to be in their information environment using their language. And that's the only way to get in there to get the right information in front of you.
Are they making content or are they commenting under posts being like?
Both, for sure.
Okay.
Both. Yeah, definitely.
And they know how to get in front of those eyes.
Absolutely. It's a science. I'll be honest with you. It's a science. It's basically a system, a company even. It's marketing. It's really not that difficult, right? And so the military doing it, to influence local populations, to, it could be, again, to educate about America's intentions. It could be also to shape their perceptions of, let's say, the Taliban or some other group that we want them to see in a certain way. So it is an influence operation. It is there can be propaganda in that as well, without a doubt. And so that happens at the military level for certain, not mostly, I would say often, sometimes for tactical reasons, like we're about to do an operation, maybe even want to get people to get out of the way and stuff like that. Or also could be strategic reasons to slowly turn that group against its own oppressors or something, whatever. And obviously goes without saying, this stuff can be abused. And I'm sure it's abused by every country ever. How could it not? There's humans running this. And then there's outside the military, then there are, let's talk about like recently my work exposing these coordinated inauthentic behavior campaigns by the IRGC, the Islamic Republic of Iran, does this at massive scale.
Really?
Like
this is a major focus for them.
Absolutely. It's probably their focus. Like that's the focus. And I'll get into why in a second. And this isn't done at a military level for them, really. They're not here to try to shape a tactical level military perception of something like that. They're doing it at the geopolitical level, the socio-political levels. And they definitely have some people domestically doing it, without a doubt. Like there's people in Iran in rooms doing what I just described with bots and sock puppets, both, of course. But a lot of these countries, they are contracting this work out to other countries, like third world countries, like India, Indonesia, Southeast Asia, sometimes Turkey, Pakistan. And there are like entities that are just contracted to do this. They're doing it for economic reasons. Their reasons is economic a lot of times, but of course, in this case, the Islamic Republic of Iran's motivation is a geopolitical reason. They're trying to influence the West. And instead of doing it in Iran, they can get a room full of Indians, Pakistanis, Turks, Indonesians, whatever it is, to do it very, very cheaply and at scale.
And so they give them instructions on what to say, what to post, like this.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a playbook for this type of stuff. It's a very formalized occupation in information warfare. Again, like you said, like people say stuff all the time online, bots, and they say all this stuff and they just don't understand what it means. I'm not being condescending. People just don't understand what it means.
I don't know,
It's it is an occupation. This is a military and intelligence community occupation. Like we have decades, we have playbooks, we have systems, it's very formalized. It's very formalized.
So there are people in India, Pakistan, Turkey, whatever, they're trying to feed their family.
Yep.
So they go to the office and their office is literally like a bot farm, sock puppet offices where they will go sit and get paid at the end of the day for doing what they're told. But their contract is you're going to post this type of stuff. You're going to leave these comments. You're going to make these posts. Then they go home at the end of the day. They get their paycheck. And like, that's just,
without a doubt.
That's fucking crazy.
It's no different than the widespread fraud that is done in Africa, India, Southeast Asia from poor communities. They don't think twice about it. It is for them, it's economic. I'm not saying there maybe isn't some groups that do it both economically and maybe they might have an ideology. They might agree with the stuff they're doing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if they agree with it or not. The effect is the same. It is shaping the information environment. That's the language to use, is whether it's bots or sock puppets or cyborgs, which is just saying it's a hybrid. It could have some automated functions and a person could also be operating it. In this spectrum of coordinated inauthentic behavior, it's to shape our information environment. And that is part and parcel with other things like cyber and influence operations and propaganda. It is the cognitive domain, to shape the cognitive domain, what people feel, think, perceive, their beliefs. That's ultimately the goal, is to do that. And it's never been easier than now to do that with the iPhone, the smartphone was around 2009 or 10 or whatever it came out. Social media, put those two together. Obviously, we've seen what has happened in the last 10 years is apocalyptic. And now you add AI. And now the ability to, in a sophisticated fashion, to not only the scale, but the accuracy, the deployment, everything has been squished down to a very short period of time of how quickly and how well you can do it. The efficacy is up and the speed is up. So now this new era we're stepping into now, supercharged by AI, is going to make, it's really, I'll be honest, it's, I try not to hyperbolize, but I think it's existential what we're stepping into. I mean, we can see it, like everything's divided, everything is maligned and conspiracies galore, and just it's insane what is happening. And our technology enabled it, and so, yeah, I mean, our entire worldview is shaped now primarily through this phone.
Is there anything that's happened recently, and you can define recent however you'd like, but anything recently that you've seen that you can use as an example of one of these information wars, this disinformation campaigns that you've seen play out and maybe it's still going on. Is there anything that you've seen that you can use as a practical example that maybe someone listening, maybe they've seen it, maybe they've been a victim of it, maybe whether they fell for it or not, but then you've seen it play out actively in real life, specifically here in the United States? Is there anything that you've seen?
I mean, certainly, I think the most obvious one is anything to do with Israel. It doesn't even matter where it doesn't matter what people, if they like Israel or not. I mean, that's really not important. What I think is important is understanding that the information related to Israel and Gaza and Iran now is primarily artificial. It is not based in facts. It is based in narratives. And what is happening very intelligently by foreign and domestic actors is every political pressure point is leveraged. So you can see Epstein. We're going to talk about ICE. We're going to talk about the Iran war, Gaza, now Hezbollah and Lebanon. Every single political point now is weaponized in the information domain, all of them. And I think, Israel is the biggest one because it has, like, the average person, and I don't blame them, why do they think about Israel? Why do I care about Israel? But now it's everywhere. And that's not by accident. They have, there's a term for this too, it's called flooding the zone. They've flooded the zone. Everything is now somehow connected to Israel and Jewish people, like literally everything, which should make people suspicious, but sadly it doesn't seem to. It's just a flood. Everything's a conspiracy. Everything's connected. Everything has some nexus with Jews and Israel and Epstein and all these things.
AIPAC and
It's a industrial scale, systematic influence operation of maligning a country and a people. And at the end of the day, we can get into all of these other terminology as well: misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. It doesn't mean all of it is false, but that's actually not the point. The point is the coordination and the motivation of how that information is designed to shape people's perceptions. That's what I think people should be most concerned about. Take any topic. Again, I don't care. Whoever is listening right now, think about anything you're passionate about. Ask yourself this question. The way you think, feel, and believe about that topic, are those beliefs your own? You ever stop to think, are those my beliefs? Like, did I come to these conclusions, or were they shaped?
How do you know? How can you figure that out if they're yours or if they were shaped? And aren't all of our beliefs are shaped in some way, right?
Absolutely. And I'm not sure I can answer the question as how you would know if they are. The answer is, of course they were shaped. So then what's most important, though, is who shaped them? How were they shaped?
Why?
And were they shaped with authentic information? And were they shaped to inform you or to influence your future behavior? So the motivation is very important. Like look, you're great at this on the health and fitness side. Are you there to propagandize, or are you there to help better someone's life? The motivation is very important of how you spread information. Because let's go back to those three terminologies: misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. Saying something truthful that is uncomfortable to hear or maybe shapes your perceptions, that's not inherently wrong. Like, we should know bad things as well. Like, we should know that certain foods or certain diets or lifestyles are harmful. So by telling people that, you're not propagandizing necessarily. But I think you probably see this too. I'd be interested to see if you know some parallels on this, is how people weaponize information for their own good or to malign other communities. That is the actual difference, right? So if someone says, like, I know you're big on this too, just calories in, calories out type of stuff, rather than obsessing about a specific diet. What works for you? And at the end of the day, you need to be in a calorie deficit. It's pretty simple, guys. Like, stop overcomplicating it. But I'm sure on the health side, there are people who say things to shape a narrative, and it could be for economic reasons. Again, motivations are an interesting topic. It could be for economic. It also could be ideological as well, right? So whether it's health and fitness or whether it's this geopolitical world, that's, I think, what's important for people to try to step back and realize, like, okay, is this information I'm getting true or false? Which we can get into how to maybe even find that answer out, which is increasingly difficult. But also, what is the motivation behind the person? That's super important, because, like, whatever, vaccines or something, right? Like, of course, another highly just polarized, toxic subject somehow. Yeah. It's like is someone telling you, like, okay, so COVID vaccine and COVID infection itself increases blood clot risk. That's actually just a fact. But someone else can use that as to be anti-vax now, right? They can say, like, look, they designed it so they could control us, and they want to put a chip in us and track us and all this type of stuff. It can go out of control. But other person can just be grounded and nuanced and be like, look, not all vaccines are created equal. Maybe some are good, maybe some are bad. Some we have less data on, some we have more data on. And there are inherent risks in some of these things. And on a case-by-case basis, you should decide if it's right for you. Like, those are the kinds of conversations we should be having about all information, whether it's about Israel or vaccines or anything. Right. But that's not the type of information environment we live in. It's highly conspiratorial, highly influenced through ideology and economic motivations. And that's this is why we find ourselves in this place where, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Think about it. Every single topic now is just full of disinformation, influence, lies, conspiracies, polarization. Like, well, it's like we're addicted to it.
Yes. Let me bring an example in that I've seen. It has a grain of truth, but it's deliberately propagandized. So AIPAC, we hear about AIPAC all the time now, how AIPAC is evil and how all of our government is bought off by AIPAC, blah, blah, blah. And so the grain of truth is that AIPAC will use money to influence congressmen, congresswomen, to our government. Lobbying, correct. And now the grain of truth is that this organization uses money to influence its interests. That's correct. But when you actually look at the numbers and you actually look at how much influence it has and how much money it's spending relative to other organizations, other lobby organizations, all of a sudden it's like, oh, so if money was the main issue, okay, well, AIPAC is spending fractions of a fraction of a fraction. And if you look at countries, like Israel is spending fractions of fractions of fractions relative to other governments, whether it's the Japanese government, Korean government, Qatar, whatever it is. There's these small, teeny tiny grains of truths that then are easily extrapolated into propagandized information. One of my concerns is that these grains of truth that are then propagandized lead to massive conspiracies, and what may be started as a disinformation campaign or misinformation campaign or propaganda campaign with someone in another country, the IRGC or Pakistan, whatever it is, then very quickly bleeds into real people promoting these exact same things on their shows. Like, to go to your point about what is their motivation, my immediate thought goes to two people, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, who I would love your thoughts on these things, but I think they have two different motivations, and I'll tell you why. When I look at someone like Candace Owens and I look at her YouTube, for example, right after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, you start to see her putting Charlie Kirk, Erica Kirk in her titles and thumbnails. and immediately her views go up by like 10x. And when that happens, she starts getting paid way more money, not just for the views, but also for sponsorships. And you can literally go through. You can go in order in her YouTube videos. When she has a video about Charlie, Erica, or Israel, the views go crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And when it's not those topics, the views aren't as high.
Yep.
So I see a clear financial, economic motive for her to be continuing to espouse these views, regardless of whether or not she believes them. That's irrelevant to me at this point. It's just like, what is she saying and what's her motivation? It seems to me to be money. I don't know, though. But then I look at someone like Tucker, who, number one, you can just watch him and Candace previously talk about things we're talking about now, and they've completely 180. They've flipped. Like their beliefs have flipped. But Tucker, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't believe he needs money. And maybe I'm wrong again, but it doesn't seem to me like it's a financial thing as much as it might be an ideological thing. And I just don't know why. And I don't know who's influencing him.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your thoughts are on this. Maybe I'm just going completely off topic here, but I'd love your thoughts if you have any on this specific issue.
Yeah, this stuff is out of control. This just Israel derangement syndrome. And I would just say this Jew hate industrial complex that's been created now. As you said, this incentives are there. Like the algorithms, they reward content around this topic. So there is a conscious and even unconscious incentive by anyone to make content about these emerging topics, like whatever, Charlie Kirk, Israel wars and stuff like that. So I happen to think that there is less financial incentive than people think there is. I think we overestimate that so-and-so is bought off, they're getting paid by Qatar and stuff like this. There's certainly some of that happening. There is. But they don't need to get paid by Qatar or anything like that. They get paid by Google.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like they get paid by their sponsors. And then the other people who aren't even getting paid, their value is growing an audience that they can monetize later.
Mm-hmm.
So the incentive doesn't have to directly be money related. In fact, I think some of these people is that they have been red pilled, as we would say, into entirely seeing everything through a lens of Jewish control and influence. And now they even turned against President Trump, who all of them liked and voted for, which they would have never done had it not been Israel he supported. Like, it's just objective. So there is this contagion that has spread online like a mind virus, that people's identities are now shaped around talking about Israel and Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of it is just to make money. There are other social movements we could talk about as well that became trendy, and it's the trend. This one's, of course, I think extremely dangerous and concerning as opposed to some other ones, but it is the latest trend to just shape an entire identity around it. You can monetize it. You can get attention. That could be your currency. And Tucker and Candace and many others, Sean Ryan, I mean, there's really just...
He's really gone off the deep end.
He's cooked. That guy's cooked. He's gone.
Which I used to love his stuff.
Yeah.
I really did.
Yeah,
Sucks.
he's wow. But here's the thing. There is virality into how social contagions spread online. And I think a lot of these people were influenced by the other content. Like a couple big people get into some weird stuff. Look, we had this during the first Trump administration too. Like this isn't new. Unfortunately, it is now revolving around Jewish people, but like it was about COVID.
Yes.
It's about
Yes.
January 6th. It's about everything now that like people get into these cults. The Pizza Gate, if you remember this thing, like people just obsess about a topic and then shape their identities and then therefore their content around it. And like it truly becomes like a cult. And I mean that literally. And what's scary about that is how can you get someone out of a cult? And in our instance, there's no explaining Jews in Israel that's ever going to be effective against people who are in a cult like that. There's other ways to get people try to get them out of cult-like mind. And that's where we're living now is it's this ecosystem. That's why I call like this Jew hate Israel industrial complex online where it's just like the social media economy is like revolving around it right now. And until that changes, until the incentive structure changes, then so many people are just going to live in that. So I don't see any near-term way out of this obsession that the internet has, because when it gets to this point, at a truly conspiratorial level, everything that happens, they will find a nexus to Jewish people, no matter what. And that's the scary part, is any event now, mass shootings, anything is like, oh, a Jew did or something. What are you talking about?
Or anything against Jews is a false flag. I see that
100%.
all the time.
Everything's a false flag.
Yes.
That's part of the conspiracy.
Yes.
It has to work both ways.
Yes.
Everything's a Jew's fault, and anything that happens against them, of course, is fabricated so that they can get sympathy. If that were true, it's not working.
Correct.
It's so low IQ. Unfortunately, that's how a lot of people operate. It doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to feel right to them. And let's zoom out now. Why is all this happening? Let's see. Again, I love even just not talking about Jews in Israel because people don't understand the underlying soil in which we're operating. And that's demoralization. If anyone's heard of now the famous Yuri Bezmenov,
KGB, right? He
former
defected.
KGB defector.
I love this, yeah.
Demoralization. What is demoralization? The reason why all of these conspiracies and just cult-like mentalities are out of control now, there's many factors, and we can get into technological, sociological, political. But under all of that is demoralization. So to be demoralized, someone might think, oh, it just means I'm like sad or I've given up on something. Okay, sure, in layman's terms. But demoralization, at least to the Soviets, was an objective. It's not a terminology, it's an objective. And that is to shape the information environment such as to lead people into a cognitive state where they are demoralized about their systems, in this case, capitalism and democracy, their religions, Judeo-Christian, Christians, Jews, their institutions, eroding trust. You don't trust your institutions anymore, whether it's media, whether it's government, whether it's health. It's a process to get a population demoralized, and also a scientific, formulaic way to march people in that direction. And that's what the Soviets did during the Cold War very effectively without the internet, just through universities, radio and television, and newspapers as well, and private clubs and things of that nature. So a demoralized society has eroded most of its trust in media, government, health, all those types of institutions. We are there, if people haven't noticed. We are there at historic levels. And part of that, to have a nuanced conversation, is, of course, the fault of some of those institutions. They have failed us. Like health has failed us, media has failed us, the government has failed us. There's absolute truth. Like they have contributed to the demoralization. But what I like to talk about, that's a harder issue to solve, but must be solved. But setting that aside, on the information environment, which is my focus, is part of our demoralization is just amplified. It's not consistent with the level of ineffectiveness of those institutions. Yes, they have failed us, they've lied to us and all that stuff, but it's not like they don't work. They do work. They just don't always work, and sometimes they screw things up in a really bad way. That's a fact. But the level of demoralization we're in now is as if like all of media is broken and corrupt. All of government is broken and corrupt. All of health is broken and corrupt. Da, 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 da. And that's intentional. This was done systematically through influence operations. And that's the problem I have with it. If our outrage was proportional to the reality, then it is what it is. That's fair. But it's disproportionately greater than to what our real ails are in this world. And this is the stage one of this 4-stage process that Yuri Bezmenov articulated as a Soviet, what they call ideological subversion. The first phase is to demoralize a society. Before you can really start to shape it and control it, you need to demoralize them. You need to get them to this point where they trust no one, trust nothing, they're apathetic, maybe they're even angry. Then there's...
And you said that takes like 15 to 20 years at
back
least,
then,
right?
Back then.
Because
back then.
that's like a generation from education. But now it can go faster, you think?
Weeks.
Shut up.
Because of social media and AI. That's the scary part, is it could take, in his estimate, it could take a generation, right? Because of the technology at the time, right? The access to information was slower.
Right. And education took that long. Yeah, now it's different. That makes sense.
Now, one viral video
Yeah.
can shape someone's perception on
That's so true.
anything.
That's so true. Dude, I mean, it's crazy because I think about so many things, whether it's people in the streets who say they stand for social justice holding up pictures of Khomeini.
Yeah.
And like, or literally the day after October 7th, people like it
Nasrallah, Hamas, Khamenei, they're just like but so part of that ideological subversion, by the way, is intentional. They are revising history. It's very Orwellian. You now make what should be the objective oppressor, dictator, Islamist, jihadist rulers of countries, you make them the oppressed. Huh?
It
what?
Makes no sense. Yes.
But it does make sense to the people who've been subverted, because the information that they are consuming, I call this a digital diet. You might like that term.
I do like that term.
We should write a book. The digital diet. We'll do it together. The digital diet has convinced them that those militant oppressors are only like that because someone made them like that. It's not their fault. They're fighting the oppressor. So they are allowed to be oppressors and jihadists and to abuse their own populations. Or if they do that, some people, again, there's a spectrum here, may not agree with that part, but be like, well, I can look past that because there's a greater Satan that I want to focus on. So it's actually, to me, it is, of course, outrageous that we're seeing this happening. But to me, it's entirely predictable given people's lack of literacy. Media literacy, and the things we're discussing here, how to understand how you're being shaped, and also political literacy. People don't even know how governments work.
Correct, yeah.
I mean, the lack of literacy in the West, especially in the US, is a abysmal. I would actually characterize it as a national security risk. Why? Because if your literacy rates on all of these domains are so abysmal, it is the opportunity to be influenced to hate yourself, hate your country, hate your values, hate your systems, and then to instead of subversion, which is generally an outside force operating on you, sedition. Sedition is usually within your own country to take it down from within. So the subverters are creating our own population to be seditious and wanting to destroy our own systems because they have been told our own systems are actually the bad guys. So this is done. It's very calculated. It is orchestrated. It is coordinated. And it has been happening for decades. But in the last 10 years, everyone should be able to see and sense it, that it has exploded exponentially because of technology primarily. That's the reason. It's just, again, it shrank the time needed to have these effects. Again, this is a professional, this is an occupation of how to do this. It's very scientific because we understand the sociology, the psychology, the socio-political dynamics, economic impact. We have all of these categories and we know how, in general, how they influence each other. So it's not hard to design campaigns that will move through these and have a cognitive effect, cognitive warfare. It's really a matter of time and the quality of the narrative and the audience you're reaching. At the end of the day, some of this is strictly marketing. I know you understand marketing, right? In marketing, you have geographics, their people's location. You have psychographics, their values, their political affiliation, maybe their religion, their virtues. Geographics, psychographics, and then demographics. You have male, female. You have their age. You might have nationality, things of that nature. So understanding those three things, it's really just marketing. You do that at a population level, or you can do it on small macro levels, and then those add up over time to a micro. They add up to a macro level. So at the end of the day, the marketing and media is militarized into information operations.
And I apologize, I interrupted you when you were talking about your best, is the phases. So you had said phase one is demoralization.
And
what are the
destabilization is so think about it like this. You want to move, so a demoralization is affecting people's beliefs and their perceptions and things like that. And then destabilization is you really want to get people to act. So you move from feeling a certain way about a government or a people, and you shape their perceptions, their beliefs about the government or Jews or whatever. And then if you do that long enough or effective enough, again, time now is a less of a factor. If you do that effective enough, you'll move certain people into action. It will move from a belief to an action, and they will go assault someone, kill someone, vandalize something. Or apart from that kind of action, it could also just be to vote differently. That is an action as well. Or to spend money differently. Those are also actions. And now that starts to destabilize a population because it moves from just people walking around the streets being racist or something to now they're actually carrying out racist actions or whatever, right? And that could be laws, right? It could be like, if you created slavery, or in Nazi Germany is the greatest example of this, of how the demoralized society moved to a destabilized society when they started shutting down Jewish shops, making it illegal for Jews to engage in certain
laws.
Exactly. So you see how it moves from demoralization to destabilization. And now when enough destabilizing incidents happen, it moves to the third phase, crisis. And a crisis is an acute incident or collection of incidents that you could even say, in some ways, you could say maybe the BLM riots and stuff could have been one. January 6th could have been one. You can point to certain crises where something bubbled up enough, that belief system caused enough actions came to an acute point. It could be something just that happened in a day like January 6th, or it could be like the BLM stuff that happened over weeks. There's other examples as well. So the crisis could be something quick, or it could be something long, like a civil war, right? And then from crisis, you move to normalization. That's the fourth phase of this ideological subversion. And what normalization is it's not so much of a phase, it's more of an acceptance of the new norm. This is just how we're living now, like Nazi Germany or something. And I think we're having that in many ways in the West too, of mass migration, mass immigration. We're at it. Sometimes it's hard to say, like, well, I wonder which point we're at in that phase. Like, kind of seeing a little bit here and a little bit there, kind of seeing all four happening at the same time. Mm-hmm. That's because when this system that the Soviets created was, characterized, it was like in the 60s. They didn't have the internet. Now, because of the internet and social media, like, we're kind of having all four phases happening simultaneously, which is wild. But you can still, as we just broke down, you could think of almost any geopolitical incident or flashpoint. You can now use this as a scaffolding to understand where are we at right now. And I think it's very fair to say, in general, the West is on the precipice of the destabilization and crisis point. Because, I mean, look, we're seemingly always a video away from mass civil unrest. Mm-hmm. Again, George Floyd, January 6th, those are the two most prolific ones in the last few years. How easy one incident can lead us to civil unrest. That shouldn't happen in a society, in a normal operating society. That is happening because of the deep, deep level of demoralization. Think about it like a tolerance level. Yeah, I'm sure you can think of some really good examples on the health, even with, like, whether it's dopamine, testosterone, the hormones, all sorts of things like this. There's a level you hit where something bad can happen, and there's this natural range that you can be in, and it's hard to measure, but there is a natural range of demoralization where we can live civilly. But we're now always riding at 9 out of 10, almost like anxiety. I have anxiety. I don't mind admitting it. So sometimes when I drink coffee, it can, like, I might be always riding at like a 7 or something, which isn't necessarily healthy. I'm just at a 7 type of person. So certain events, coffee, even caffeine, it can make me go to 9 really quickly. Mm-hmm. That distance is so much shorter for someone who's at a specific, their baseline. That's the best word to use. Right. The baseline. And our baseline of demoralization is so high that distance to civil unrest is so small. Mm-hmm. That we are always there, and that's what's super concerning.
How does the average person, a couple of things. The first thing I want to focus on, how does the average person, how can they spot something like a bot, something like a sock puppet, something that is specifically designed to get an emotional response out of them, to demoralize them, to trick them, to, like, how can they become more aware of what? And here's what I think might be the most tricky part. It's one thing to be like, how do we know it's a bot? How do we know it's a sock puppet, whatever? But then it's another thing entirely when we have real people, big names, who maybe they've said other things that we've really liked. Maybe they've taught us other things in the past. Yeah. How do we identify and become more aware of the information that is coming across our phone, that is coming in front of our faces? How do we become a more rational, logical, emotionally intelligent individual to look at this stuff and separate it or to try and verify it? Do you have any recommendations on that?
Yeah, definitely a lot. Okay, so I think you made one important point I want to address as well. And this is something, because I'm doing a lot of work for a lot of organizations on the foreign influence, coordinated and authentic behavior standpoint. I'm doing a lot of research there, and people are always like, I think overestimating how much, like there's a lot. Clearly, that's why we're having this conversation. There's a lot of like foreign influence and bots and stuff, without a doubt. Like I'm talking about it all the time. But believe it or not, I think people are actually overestimating how much of our information environment is that. It's actually less than you'd think, but still at a very scary level. Why I bring that up is because you said these are done, a lot of this stuff's done by real people and people we trust and like. And that is actually the hardest thing to stomach and reconcile is we can't blame everything on Qatar and Pakistan and the IRGC. It's Americans. Actually, there's a very, very damning quote that Yuri Bezmenov said in one of those famous interviews where he describes ideological subversion. I don't remember exactly how he said it. He says, most ideological subversion is done by Americans to Americans. And that's is
scary.
The force multiplier. That's the best way to do it. Who has the resources and time to do it entirely from foreign standpoint? Just get Americans to do it to themselves. That is the goal. And he was saying this, I believe that interview, ironically, was 1984. Orwell. And that's where we're at now too. That's why I tell people all the time, I'm like, yes, seeds are planted and things are amplified. That is generally how the foreign influence is being done, definitely seeding and amplifying. But now they can actually take a step back. They don't need to invest as much, right? Like it's like a moving train. The investment, the energy investment to get a train going and a plane is a lot. It is a lot. But once it's moving, it's about momentum.
Yeah, it's got inertia. It's going.
Inertia. Influence operations are the same. The ideological inertia, that's an interesting way of putting it, is such that if they were smart, they would just reduce to some degree and strategically reduce certain kinds because we're off to the races ourselves. It is a forest fire burning. You don't need to throw matches. It's a forest fire.
Right.
The fuel's already there.
Yeah.
So that was my most important point I wanted to make, is to understand we're doing it to ourselves. And left, right, religious, not religious, it's happening. And that's, I think, is an important observation to make, because I actually don't think most people are equipped to get to your question about how we can identify and what we can do about it. I actually don't think most people are equipped to identify a lot of this stuff because it's quite technical. They're capable of it. I just don't think they have the time, the motivation to do it. And I'll get into some interesting ways how we can do that. But I think what's more important is to people to understand all of the media we consume. You have to give my first pointer is taking pause with the stuff you consume. And especially if it creates an emotional reaction to you, is to take pause again and to think. You can ask yourself a lot of questions. Is this healthy that I'm learning this and watching this? Is this true? What's their motivation here? Why are they saying this? Just literally ask questions. And you don't have to do it again. And this doesn't have to be conspiratorial. Just ask yourself critical questions like, why is this in my feed? Why is this person saying this when last week they weren't? And so it's just taking pause with the types of things we consume and being intentional about it. I think that is something that is hard to do by the nature of just infinite feeds and scrolling. That is very hard to do. I'm not saying I even do it all the time. We're up against human nature in that sense and against the design of these apps. But taking pause is super important. Now, pause to the next level, I think, is the most important thing that I'm also trying to figure out how to do, is to fast, digital fasting.
Yeah.
There's another health analogy we can use here is the fasting. The amount of information we consume is so unhealthy. It's insane. Like, I think we unintentionally, I hope, overestimated that information is inherently valuable. It's not. Is it actionable? I think that's the question to ask. Is it even actionable? Is it relevant to me? Like, for example, like anything, all these like crazy influencers and people are saying, like, is any of it even relevant to me? Do I need to think that this group is conspiring and doing all this? Do I need to know this gossip on this influencer's battle and all this stuff? Is it even relevant? It's not healthy. And social media has become just a reality TV show and a house of mirrors. It is. I'm sorry, I'm so doom and gloom, but
No,
that's how I feel. It is become by default toxic and fake. And for that reason, that's why I say having pause and then fasting are two effective ways that don't take technical mindset of how did this bot get formed and how can I identify that it's a bot. I love to get into that too. People will be fascinated. But those are two of the ways that we have complete agency over, because we can't control entirely what's in front of us, sadly, right? The algorithm serves us stuff. We see this on social media now, especially on X, Facebook, Instagram. I'm sure you look at your insights from time to time. When I do a reel, it's 70 to 85% non-followers. I'm like, huh? Like, it's cool to like reach a new audience, but like the content now is focused on being pushed into people who didn't ask to see my content. Correct. That's the way I see it. Yeah. It's people who didn't ask to see my content. They didn't subscribe to me. They didn't give any consent. And I think at a small level, that's fine, because that's how you grow an audience and you introduce people so it doesn't stay in a silo. But the problem with that is, as the consumer, not as the influencer, when you look at your feed, that also means up to 60 to 80%, now I'm just talking about Instagram, is content we never asked to see. I have no consent in this content. So you're not even choosing what you view. That's a problem as well. So for that reason, being more intentional with how we consume content can also be a way to inoculate this. Because if you think about it like this, it's very simple. If you are not choosing what content you are consuming, then by definition, you are being propagandized. In this sense, by the algorithm. It's not a particular person or nation in that sense. It is just the algorithms of the social media. And that has taken our agency away from us. When we moved from what is known as the friends graph or social graph, which means most of our content was from people we followed, liked, subscribed, whatever word you want to use. We moved from the social graph to the interest graph. Now the algorithm is based around interests. It understands through our feedback what topics and things we are most interested in or most outraged by, not interested in. And now that's primarily what we get. So that shift from social media, which I hold all of these companies, the guilt is on them from doing that because they realize they can monetize better with the interest graph over the social graph. It has fundamentally shaped society by doing that. Their economic interest, I truly believe this, are destroying the world. Agreed. Absolutely destroying the world. Again, I think there is a healthier balance. Give us 10% or something as non-followers or something. I don't know. Again, I don't want to prescribe that we shouldn't get introduced to new content, because there's an effect of being in an echo chamber as well. But So this is what we're up against. And for people, this is where the literacy component comes into it. If you understand how these systems are working against us, then for the people who care enough, are motivated enough, there are things you can do to fight back, again, through pausing, through fasting, and through literacy. These kinds of things can help try to take back our agency and better have influence on how our worldviews are shaped.
Man, there's so much you said there that I love. One thing I want to highlight is this pause that you're taking when you're getting information, especially when you notice an emotional response. I'm getting angry. I'm getting angry, upset, furious, whatever. My alarm signal goes off for myself and for others when whatever it is you're consuming causes you to start to blame another group for your life circumstances or your perceived life circumstances, because it's not always even real. It's sort of manufactured in the algorithm. But for me, I love history. I talk about it all the time. I've studied it. I've always said if I wasn't in the fitness industry, I'd be a history professor. When we look at whether it's the Nazi regime or really all throughout history, the most successful dictators, fascists, whomever, they're able to blame a group. And now I see, the Republicans blame the Democrats blame the Republicans, and the religions blaming other religions, different people blaming different people. If you can be more aware of not only the emotion that you're having, but also, is that piece of content or that comment or whatever, is this causing you to blame a group of people for a problem that you see in the world? If that, for me, is the biggest alarm signal. Is this causing you to blame this certain group of people, whether it's Republicans, Democrats, Jews, Christians, whatever it is? Is it causing you to blame them? I would say that might be one of the biggest alarm systems for you to be like, hey, maybe I should be a little bit more cautious and aware of what I'm consuming. Because then as the algorithm works, it starts to see what you're interested in, and it starts to see what's causing an emotional response, and it will feed you more of that, more of that, more of that. So then just the cyclical nature of it, you're going to start to see more and more and more of those things, which then can start to accelerate that blame cycle.
Yep.
It's scary. And one thing that I try and do, I've said as soon as I can, I'm going to be off social media. Like I don't think it's good for me. I don't think it's good for really the vast majority of people.
Yeah.
One thing I don't see myself stopping is the podcast, because in addition to pausing, being aware of our emotions, who we're blaming, etc., I think one of, if not the best things we can do is sit down and have conversations with people, and not just people who we agree with, but equally, if not more importantly, people we disagree with. Because what I've found time and again, I could sit down across from someone who on social media, it looks like we are complete polar opposites. Like we completely vehemently disagree. But as soon as we sit down across from one another and we look each other in the eyes, we have a real conversation, all of a sudden we're like, oh no, we agree on this and we agree on this. And yeah, I said this on social media, but let me give you a little bit more nuance. Then we have more conversation.
Right.
I feel like, to your point of digital fasting, get off, go talk with people, have real conversations. Unfortunately, I certainly don't have the answer to how we fix this or how we solve this, but from the becoming less demoralized, I don't know anyone who's ever got off of social media and felt, I feel refreshed. I do know people, and myself included, who get off social media being like, fuck, I get off social media, I feel worse than I did before I got on it. And it's like, if we want to reduce, limit, mitigate this mass demoralization, go have real conversations, go meet people in real life, and have, or like this, listening to conversations like this, where we can have these types of conversations and expose yourself to ideas and people and nuance, rather than this blame this group for my problems. And obviously, as a Jew, it's like, there's that like historical touch point of like, who's always been the group that's blamed. Like it's Jews over and over and over again. So that's like for my own personal bias and touch point. But I do want to hear your thoughts on how someone might be able to practically recognize a bot or a nefarious actor whether it's a sock puppet or a bot, how someone might be able to be more practically aware of the information they're taking in.
Yeah. So in coordinated inauthentic behavior, like countering it, identifying it, there are some technical ways. Some of them people can do. Other ones you might need you could use AI or something to do it as well. I'll give you some examples. So at the end of the day, you're making an assessment as to whether something is artificial or not. You may not always know with 100% certainty. So every example I'm going to bring up, I'll give you like 5 out of like 10 to 15 markers. Each one you find in it and of itself is not convincing, but it's the totality of how many of these markers you find that increases the likelihood. Okay, so some of these will be pretty simple. No profile image, or suspicious profile image, something weird, something that doesn't make sense, doesn't align with maybe the name, the username itself. 1, overly generic names. Yes, there really are Mike Jones and whatever, Stephanie Johnsons and things like those people exist, but these operations choose these names on purpose, very generic names. A third piece would be serialization. Sometimes it's a name. I actually just did a presentation about a network I uncovered, and I called it the Animal Bot Farm, and it was the word platypus, period, up to 6 digits. And I saw this, I'll give you a good example. And I saw this comment on my page, actually. It was from platypus dot several numbers. And I was like, okay, like my instincts was like, that's weird. And then the comment was also something ideologically motivated. This person doesn't follow me. They were just like, it was something like history revisionism of like Israel or something. It was like, it wasn't like anti-Semitic. It was like redefining Jews' connection to Israel or something. Some long comment too. I was like, this is slop, whatever. So I reported it for like spam. A few days later or whatever, Instagram, of course, comes back and says, well, we're not doing anything about it. So that made me mad. And I was like, all right, I'm going back to that account. I went back to that account and I went, no profile picture, serialized name, platypus dot, a whole bunch of numbers, no bio, not following anyone. And then all the content was anti-Semitic stuff. And I was like, okay, I think I know what's going on here. Let me see if I can prove it. Oh, also, I'll give you some other markers. Recency of account creation date. Most people are not creating new Instagram accounts or any social media accounts at this point. Let's just be honest. Most people, I'm generalizing, because we already have them. Unless you're creating one for a business or a new venture. Of course, that happens all the time. But you're not like creating a new personal account. This doesn't happen basically like 99.9% of the time. Okay, with exceptions. So recency is suspicious. And you'll see a lot of these accounts. Luckily now with X and Instagram, you can click the dots at the top and you can do account information, whatever it's called, about this account. And it will tell you the month and year that account was created. You don't need any special software to do that. And if it's this year, that's cause for concern, especially, again, if you have other markers, it increases the likelihood. And with this account with Platypus, it was like in May 2026. So this one had all of the markers. It was like out of control. So what I did is I used some technology and methodology, and I extrapolated the whole network. And I found just with Platypus dot insert numbers, I found like 1,500 accounts. Platypus dot something, fill in the blank. So it was a serialization of a bot network. It was, and what I did is over time, I one by one, I used some technology to help, of course, got every single parameter of that account creation dates, latest post, language, narratives, country of origin, because I know how to get the country behind an account as well. And then I made a spreadsheet of those 1,500. And then with that, I was able to put them on a timeline, and I was able to put them on a country line or a geographic line. On the timeline, those 1,500 accounts with Platypus, I put it over. I looked at the account creation date. I expressed that on a graph, and I saw a pattern. The explosion, like 90% of the accounts, whatever the number is, I don't remember, were created since December 2025. What happened in December 2025? Well, that is when the unrest in Iran started happening. The protests started happening. And then in January, 8th and 9th, I believe, is where the mass slaughter happened of some 40,000 Iranians in the street. And then, so from December to January, it explodes. Account creation dates explode, spike, massive spike, exponential. Most of those accounts were created during that time and throughout the Iran war, this one this year. Interesting. So that is something people couldn't do without someone like me to do that. And I want to expect them to do that, but I want them to people to understand how we can start to see the coordination here. So obviously that's a correlation. It's not necessarily causation, but okay. Correlation. Clearly their creation and their activity overlapped with a major global political thing happening. And then that account, some of those accounts, because I was a recipient, were spreading anti-Semitic content so that we can see the motivation now. Now I don't need to guess the motivation. They explicitly showed it because they commented. Had that account only been liking or something, it would be harder, but it commented something and then on its own account had some anti-Semitic content.
Where were these accounts created?
Where? Oh, perfect. So the second graph I expressed like in a bar chart, every country and of origin. And there was some, 20 countries that they were created throughout. 51% of those accounts, of those 1,500, were created in India.
Interesting.
So India-based accounts spreading anti-Semitic content and sometimes less anti-Semitic, but more trying to be sophisticated history revisionism comments, spreading them on Instagram at scale. These are bots. This isn't 1,500 Indians in a room being a platypus. And you know what's interesting? I presented this, and I'll send it to you. I think you'll find it fascinating. I presented this at the Combat Anti-Semitism Movement conference in Miami a few weeks ago, and I showed this visually. It's fascinating. I'll show you the network. And by the way, I did this for Tucker Post as well. I showed the networks operating and amplifying Tucker Carlson's content.
Oh, really?
It's crazy stuff. So with the platypus one, so I did this presentation in front of this room. It was like 200 people, and it was received well. And after I do that, I go down and one of my friends, she's, in the Jewish activist space, comes up to me and she said, "Hey, I've been getting same comments, but from different animals." I said, "Interesting." She's like, "Yeah, it was like, I don't know what animals they were. It was like monkey or whatever, some animal dot numbers. And I said, "No way." And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Send me that. Send me all the screenshots. Did you take screenshots of all these comments?" She said, "Yeah, actually, I found some of them." I said, "Please send me that." She sent me, and I realized it wasn't just the platypus network. There's like 15 animals. So it wasn't 1,500 accounts. It was like 15,000 accounts.
Shit.
So there's platypus dot 6 numbers and 1,000 of those. And then it was, I forget the numbers, there's, whatever, there's like unicorn and bear and then lion, all these animals dot something serialized. Thousands of these. And they were all same thing, same pattern, creation dates, countries of origin. And believe it or not, actually I think some of them weren't saying anti-Semitic stuff. Maybe some of them were even saying pro-Israel stuff. And then I was like, interesting. So so it's hard to say, but think about it from a marketing perspective of how this operation, you can start to understand how this operation might be set up and who might be behind it. Okay, so some of the content is anti-Semitic, some of it is less, but more leaning in that direction, and some of it was like pro-Israel. Okay, so maybe I haven't done all the analysis yet because I've just been busy, and this is just a private project. No one hired me to do this. But my hypothesis is maybe some animals had different motivations, different target audiences. So maybe platypus is expressly anti-Semitic. Maybe another animal is like pro-Israel or something like that, whatever.
Would they all be being paid by the same group, or is this just like a?
This would be, I would, I would assess they would be just based on the operational activity and the nomenclature usage that I would assess it's the same organization by how it was built. The reason I call it serialization is because it's clearly mass-produced accounts. If they want to be more sophisticated, like sock puppets, they go create something more natural, John Atlanta 4 or something. I don't know, whatever. Something slightly more reasonable. So here's the other question then is some actors aren't expressly taking a side, right? They're dividing. Their motivation isn't necessarily to be pro-Iran, pro-Israel, pro-USA, pro-Russia, Ukraine.
It's division.
It is just division. That is part of the ideological subversion and demoralization. And in this case, we're thinking geopolitically, but again, like you said, it could be racially. We saw this during Trump's first election. Mostly it was Russia doing this. Russia was creating Facebook groups, because Facebook was a thing still, 2015 and stuff, and creating fake protests, and then getting other groups to make fake counter protests, and creating this illusion of like white against black, black against white, like Republican against Democrat, and just creating this division artificially. Yes, the division exists. Remember, there's always some baseline, but artificially creating extra division. And that's what I could assess maybe this network was involved in, was maybe not explicitly on a side, but more about just division, because this is what creates a demoralized society, is to separate people. So this is happening too. There's definitely groups that are expressly on a side, creating a narrative, and then there's other operators, could be Russia or something, that China, that don't care so much about the side, they care about chaos.
Dude, that's crazy. This made me think of something that happened about a month or two ago. I was doom scrolling and I saw this wildly anti-Semitic comment. Like it was one of the ones that like any logical person would see and be like, "Oh my gosh, it was one of the things like Hitler was right, should have killed more, whatever."
Oh yeah,
a comment like that.
Those are everywhere.
And I was like, "Well, that's crazy," and it had a picture. It wasn't like a nameless account, nor was it faceless. Like it was a real person. It looked like a real person, real picture. So I went to their account and I wanted to look at it, and it looked like the real person. So I wanted to basically, I was like, I'm going to let their employer know this is what they're saying. So I see this, it's a guy, and I see his name, and I Google his name, and it tells me that he works for XYZ. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to send an email. Just so you know, But I search his name and a picture comes up and it's not him. And I was like, and it wasn't like a Mike Jones type of a name. It was like a pretty unique name. I was like, that's weird. So then I go into AI and I basically take a screenshot of the account. I put it into AI and I was like, is this who it says it is? And AI, obviously it's not 100%, but I was like, no, that is not this person. This is most likely a bot or a sock puppet or whatever, basically pretending to be someone else so they can get away with saying certain things.
Impersonation.
It was impersonation, exactly. And so obviously I didn't send any email or anything, but it was one of those things where I was like, man, that is one of the most vitriolic, disgusting things anyone could say. And it looked like it was from this person's account, but it's just, they're just impersonating somebody else. And it's funny because when I looked at the profile of who that person really is, it doesn't make me think of a kind of person who's on social media scrolling all the time. Like they probably picked this person because that person doesn't have a social media account, so that they can't really, they're not going to be reported as often.
Yeah, it's less likely that they would catch it.
Yeah. It is interesting that it's not just about a narrative, that it can also be with the pure intent of let's just create division. And that's what they're doing.
That's where we're at. I mean, that's so much more effective. And really inherently, demoralization is more about apathy than it is about convincing people, right? It's about distrust and apathy. That's what a demoralized society is. It isn't like necessarily pro or for anything. It is the surrendering of your agency and of your future. And to get people in a population to that point, again, flood the zone with chaos, conflicting narratives, disinformation, AI manipulated content. Everything we're swimming in is the recipe for demoralization. Yeah, so again, there are certain nation states and some groups that of course have a motivation to shape a specific narrative because it's advantageous to them. But zooming out from that, which is more of a strategic, but it's kind of tactical level, just creating a division is much more advantageous and easier. A reason why? It's the shotgun approach. You don't have to be as calculated. You don't have to be as sophisticated. You don't need to change the minds of a certain demographic through careful planning over time. Just make everyone hate each other. That's so much easier to do. Just a shotgun approach. You don't need to be a sniper. So it's more economic. And look, at the end of the day, again, like whatever, Iran war, you support the Iran war or not or something like that. You don't need to get people to love or hate Israel. You don't need to get people to love or hate Iran. Just make people sick of wars. Make all Middle Eastern people are savages, both the Israelis and the Iranians. They're just Middle Eastern savages. Just get people to that place, and then they just won't go support the war.
Yeah.
They don't need to be pro or for against a country. They just make them against war.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily inherently bad, being against war, I guess. But like, that's the goal. So much easier to achieve, and that's where we are absolutely as well. And like I said earlier, part of that is our own fault. Like we have done dumb wars. We have done wars that have failed. We've pulled out too early. We've whatever. So we have plenty of mistakes that make people naturally be like, I don't want it. I'm sick of all the wars and all that type of stuff. So they can just exploit that very easily. So.
Let me ask you this before we end it. Is there anything that I'm too ignorant to bring up or anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you about?
Oh, wow.
Anything you think that's important to discuss that I didn't? And if it's no, that's fine. I just want to give you the opportunity.
I think the lesson here is, again, a lot of the things we discussed are very depressing, dark. We have to take agency back. That is how we can improve our lives at a personal level and collectively at a population level, is to understand how our world is being shaped, how our lives are being shaped. And you do that by taking your agency back. You can't necessarily take about all of your agency. Look, there are things that are out of our control, but like we said about pausing, fasting, media literacy, like seek out ways that empower you and inspire you rather than to, again, red pill you, using these online expressions, or black pill you, which is giving up. It is just everything's doomed and broken. Honestly, it might be. I don't know. But guess what? We don't have the privilege of surrendering here. So I just want everyone to have a healthy balance, create a healthy balance of taking your agency back of your own faculties and cognition, and at the same time, knowing when to fight back. We are not going to improve all of these challenges by sitting idle. Get into government, get into, I don't care, lobbying, get into law, get into the places where you can make an influence, because we need we need to address this at a government and technology level. I learned this lesson myself over the last couple of years doing all this work. I felt like I was just playing whack-a-mole because I am. I was using open source intelligence to do what you did, identify people, detail their digital footprints and all that stuff. And felt good to hold people accountable. But I realized there's just too many though. It's like, what am I doing here? What am I doing this for? We have to zoom out. We have to go macro. We need to hold technology companies accountable. Section 230 that gives them impunity to have anything online they want and get no blame for it, no accountability, no repercussions. We need to pass legislation to hold technology companies accountable and to change the incentive structure of how we consume media. Otherwise, we will always be a victim of all the things we just discussed. We need people to get into the NGOs that want to protect our privacy, protect our security. We need legislation and lawfare to go after and hold people accountable. And people just need to understand there are tools out there that we can try to take back our agency and to secure our future. But we have to, with urgency, reverse course on so many things that are happening to us right now. Otherwise, it's very predictable where we're heading. So I want to leave people feeling empowered, if I can, that there is things we can do. But for the love of God, do not continue on the course we're on now. And I think it's existential.
Where can people follow you, and how can they hire you if they need to?
My username is talk2trav, the number 2, TALK, number 2, Trav.
It's in the show notes for people to go follow you.
On Instagram, Facebook, and X. If you're looking to hire me for some kind of digital investigation, whether it's narratives, coordinated, inauthentic behavior, bots, or down to a person's digital footprint, my business is called Shadow Graph Intelligence, and you can do that. Thanks for having me, man.
All that's in the show notes, man. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. You're always welcome back on anytime. I encourage everyone to follow you. I think you do really great work, and it's been a blessing getting to speak with you and get to know you a little bit better. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please make sure you follow Travis. Again, everything is in the show notes. If you want to hire him for any special interest you may have, that is also in the show notes. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. Give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Have a wonderful week. I'll talk to you soon.